Hello and welcome to Chipola College Television. Royce Reagan with Chipola Talks. Chipola is where we are. Talk is what we're going to do. And I have somebody here today that won't let me talk much because he's used to saying you may not say anything till I give you permission. I have a retired judge with me here. Who do I have with me today?
Pardon me?
What is your name?
Robert Robinson.
Robinson, not Robertson.
Not Robertson, not Robinson.
But
it's Robinson.
Now, you're visiting in Marianna, right?
We are.
Have you ever lived here?
No, but I have ties here. My wife is from Marianna. She was born here.
Yeah.
Her mother was born here, and her grandmother was born here. So there are 3 generations.
How did you talk her
family
into going to where you live now?
Well, she came up to where we live now because her father was looking for a job.
Yes.
During the Depression. And he got a job there in the automotive field, and that was where she grew up.
Well, now, you're a retired judge. Now, what kind of judge were you, civil or criminal?
Well, I've heard that I was good. I don't mean to repeat that, but that's
you.
what they say.
Civil or criminal?
I did both.
Both. Well, it was a county or
no, in
circuit?
Indiana, there is a constitutional court, which is circuit court.
Yeah, like we have here.
And all of the counties have that. It's a constitutional court. As the population increased, the caseload increased. And because of that fact, the legislature created superior courts to handle the overload. Now, what I handled was I was a superior court number 4 in Delaware County, Indiana. And as such, I handled both civil and criminal. The only cases I did not handle are the ones, capital cases, that deal with the death penalty, and also probate.
Yeah.
Which is estate type
Mostly
law.
Paperwork, right?
Right.
You got to argue over the words. I know. I heard that. Well, now, where did you go to school to get your training?
Well, I went to Ball State University.
Yeah.
Actually, it was called Ball State Teachers College, which is located in Muncie, Indiana,
right,
where I was born and where I grew up. And later on, Ball State Teachers College became Ball State University. And they now have a school of architecture and also a school of nursing.
Wow.
So that's where I got my undergraduate work, was at Ball State.
Where'd you go to law school?
Well, as I was going through Ball State, I received draft notices, and I would appeal them.
Yeah.
And fortunately was successful each time I appealed. But then later on, as soon as I graduated, and that August they drafted me.
Yeah.
So I spent 2 years in the Army, and then after I got out of the Army, then I went to law school.
Where did you go?
I went to Indiana University School of Law, and I went at nighttime.
Well, did you like basketball when you were in Indiana?
Everybody in Indiana likes basketball.
Well, as a kid, we heard about it, and you see them on TV once in a while. Most of the time, you didn't get a chance to watch.
Yeah, I liked basketball as a kid, but you know, I was
5'7".
I was short and skinny, and I loved the game, but I physically wasn't attuned.
So
to
you
play.
met your wife while you were in school?
No, it wasn't when I was in school. It was later on, after I got out of the Army, and
yeah.
And by that time, I think she had matured enough to be ready for me. And we proceeded on from there.
You are good, Judge. You're good.
That's what they tell me.
Well, that's what I heard. That's why I wanted you to do this. All right, so you got your law degree. Then where did you start? I know you didn't jump in and be a judge immediately. What did you do in between graduating from law school and being the judge?
Well, I started practicing. And as I recall, the first day that I was in business, a fella came in and wanted to file a bankruptcy, and he gave me $250, and which is a lot of money back then.
Yeah.
And I was so happy that happened. And I thought, boy, this is great, being a lawyer, and you make $250 today. And then for the next 2 months, I didn't see anybody. So I began to have some doubts about it, but that's where I started. I practiced law. And before I became a judge, I also was elected prosecuting attorney.
So that meant you had to run for that?
Yes.
How did you do? Obviously you won, but
I won.
you won the first time you ran?
The first time I ran, I won the office, and had a lot of support both from Democrats and Republicans.
Why?
I suppose, well, I grew up on the south side, which in Muncie was where a lot of Democrats and poor folk lived.
So you knew some of those. I went to Troy University now.
I thought you went to Alabama.
I went one summer and considered an Alabama guy. But you're born in Alabama, you got to be for Alabama or Auburn. You cannot be from either.
Well, you told me that we had what did you told me you'd embarrassed you.
Oh, well, they keep after me, you know. Auburn, Alabama go at it all the time. And I got one grandchild in Auburn now. My daughter went to Alabama. I got a granddaughter playing softball here at Chipola, and another that played soccer at Auburn last year. So it gets touchy now and then.
Yeah,
but
it does.
That's better than Indiana. How do y'all stand the cold weather all the time? We're having cold
we
weather.
come down here for 3 months.
That's right. Well, what was your wife's family name, so we could sort of?
Oh yeah, her family name, and this is the one that runs through all the generations.
Yes.
Is Bassford.
Bassford.
And there are Bassfords all over Jackson County.
You were right. I had lunch with one of them yesterday.
Is that right? There's more Bassfords than Baptists down here.
I like that. I'm going to remember
You like that?
All right, now, Judge, how long did you serve as a judge? Do you remember the?
Well, let's see. I served about 16 or 17 years, I believe.
Why did you retire? Well, how old are you now? 54, 55?
Is that one of your scripted questions?
Yes, I got it right on the card, yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm not ashamed of my age.
How old are you, really?
I'm 83.
83. Well, you move around real good. I hope I can make it to 83.
Well, I hope you do too.
I do too. All right, I'm holding in my hands, folks. These are cards. I went to a couple of classes in government over a next building, and I said, guys, I'm interviewing a judge. He's a Yankee judge. Keep that in mind. A Yankee judge. Keep that in mind. And write some questions that you have down on here, and I'll see if I can throw him a curve or two. And any of these you don't want to answer, say, I'm retired. I don't want to think about that anymore. Have you ever felt guilty about putting someone behind bars?
No. You take what you have and you make a decision on it, and hopefully you made the right decision. But once you make it, then you let it go.
Let's see who that was. 'Cause I do want to mention their first name. That's Caitlin from Mariana. Victoria from Moulton, Alabama. Why does there seem to be more minorities in prison than whites?
Well, that depends upon a lot of things. It depends upon how many minorities are within the county that you're talking about going. Like if you have a 75% minorities in a county, you're going to get a lot more minorities in prison. So there's various things that would affect that issue of having more minorities in jail.
Yeah.
And they felt maybe they commit more crimes. That's also a possibility.
Well, I mean, obviously, whoever in it. Now, we're struggling in America a little bit with the idea that the police are bad, and there are bad policemen just like there are bad judges and there are bad band directors and bad TV people.
That's true.
But I'm glad we're at least talking about it because
that helps.
That
helps a great deal.
All right, here, this is Farrah from Chipley. Do you have to have a law degree to be a good lawyer?
Well, let me answer that. You've got to have a law degree to be a lawyer. So that kind of negates the question, doesn't it?
Well, have you ever had a lawyer before that you really would have liked to have taken to the side and say, let me help you some, son, you're not getting it. You don't understand what you're supposed to be doing. Have you ever had to do that?
No, I don't think that's what judges are there for.
Yeah. Well, you sound like our prosecuting attorney or our attorney in the highest ranking in our district.
Who
He's
is
like
that?
you, Glenn Hess. And let me tell you, you ask him a question, he gives you an answer. And it's not an aria. I mean, he just boom, boom, boom.
Well, who's going to dispute a judge, right?
Have you ever doubted your own abilities as a judge?
You can't do that and be a judge.
Why?
Because you're the person making a decision. You can't be doubtful when you're making a decision. It's like an umpire in a baseball game. You take all of your information, you take what you see, you make the decision.
That was Tristan from Chipley. This is Lindsay from Grand Ridge. How many times do you ever disagree with the jury's decision?
Never, because that's what the jury is for, to make the decision. They've heard the evidence. Once they've heard the evidence, then I trust their decision.
Goodness, goodness, goodness. This is Emily from Sneed's.
I heard one time that nothing good comes out of Sneed's.
You better not say that in this county. No.
I'm sorry, I want to withdraw that.
You want to withdraw that? You heard that from your wife, because that boy never would date her that she wanted to date when she was a kid.
She hadn't told me about
She
that.
hadn't told you? Have you ever made a ruling, convicting or not convicting? How do you know if you made the right choice?
Well, you've got to trust, again, in your abilities. You've got to trust what you heard. You've got to trust the other people around you that gave you the evidence that you've heard. It's a matter of trust. And once you had that, then you don't doubt your decision. You make it and you move on.
Do you ever keep it in your head, or when you leave the courtroom, does it go away?
Well, let me tell you, you can't help but think about things. But I had open heart surgery when I was a judge, and I think a lot of it is because of the fact that you're carrying all that around with you.
Yeah.
And so you got to let it go for your own well-being, if nothing else.
Have you ever seen some laws that you think are unfair? That's Maddie from here in Mariana. Do you think any laws are unfair?
Well, some of the penalty provisions I think are unfair when it's...
Well, penalty position, that's what you've got to give them if they're found guilty.
Yes.
Not, what's the difference between guilty and innocent?
That's a rather basic question.
Well, it is, but sometimes...
Well, okay, let's suppose you're charged with a crime. If you're innocent, then somebody found that you didn't do it, which doesn't mean that you didn't do it. It means that they don't have the evidence to convict you of doing it.
Well, you know, those TV judges on TV...
Let me tell you something. They're well paid.
You noticed that yesterday of how much they were making in 1 year. I saw that too. Someone mentioned it to me. But here's what they do. They're playing TV.
Oh, sure.
But one of them, somebody went to their home and walked around in this fancy home, $40-something million a year, and asked questions. Well, why do you tolerate what they're saying? Because it's TV.
That's right.
They said, usually laying in front of me is the evidence. I could rule in 10 seconds. Mm-hmm. Because if they don't have the evidence, they're not guilty. Mm-hmm. If they've got the evidence in front of them, they're going to be guilty. Mm-hmm. But they say that's TV, so they're just playing along with it. Obviously, because it makes money for TV, everybody. It makes money. And I think we misjudge judges sometimes based on, I like the judges say, you need to shut up or I'm going to send you out of this courtroom. I like that because sometimes you see them, I think they get out of hand sometime on that. And people think you can go to court and do that, and you can't do that.
That's right. I've had that happen.
What do you think about the clerk of court suspending wedding ceremonies as a way to limit gay marriage? I
disagree with that wholeheartedly.
Expound on that a little.
Expound?
Expound.
Right. Well, first of all, that's the federal law, and you follow it. You may not agree with it, but that's the law, at least until it's changed. So you follow whatever the law is, and sometimes following the law will result in a change.
Yes, then they'll have to make a decision.
That's right.
Appeal, appeal, appeal.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we got that. What's Brianna? Here's Brianna from Alpha, another Brianna. Well, this is an earlier question. What are the laws you think should be changed? I think it's the
penalty provisions.
Penalties. What do you think there should be? Why do you say that?
Well, some of them are overly harsh, I think, for a relatively minor offense, particularly in the area of drugs and alcohol and that type of offense, that are mostly personal. You're doing this to yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes they're far too harsh.
Well, on TV, every once in a while, they'll make an arrest, and they say they've already had 2 DUIs. Mm-hmm. Are we not sticking it to them enough? How do you correct those? So when they've got a rap sheet this long, and then they finally do something. I mean, I know that the judge we had on here a few weeks ago interviewed, he says, I don't want to send anybody to jail. Mm-hmm. But sometimes that's what I'm supposed to do.
Right,
and I give them alternatives. I give them second chances a lot of times, sometimes third chances. Mm-hmm. They come from good folks, and you want to, what you did?
Well, that's part of the problem is that parents get in there and say, he's a good boy, he really shouldn't do this, he didn't do this, or mitigating circumstances, and they're getting them out of all of these things. And sometimes when they go to jail, the day that door closes on them is when they realize and can change themselves. And some people will never change that you do that.
Well, there's a high-profile man that spoke to our honor students just a few weeks ago. Everybody knows him within 100 miles of here because of the ads that his company makes for selling cars. And he said, my oldest son came in with a...
I've heard that fella, and he has...
Yeah, he does.
I mute him.
He said, my oldest son came in and said, I got a ticket. Can you help me? He said, yeah, we'll go see the judge Monday. So when they get before the judge says, what do you want me to do? He said, suspend his license. His son said, I thought you were going to help me. He said, I'm trying to help you.
That's right.
You should have not done what you did.
Good point.
And he said, I'm not giving you a ride back home. You can find your best way, and you don't have a car for 6 months.
I think I'd buy a car from that man.
The kids in the class laughed, but at the same time they started asking questions about it. But, some people learn quickly, some people don't learn.
Some people never learn.
All right, I got on a couple more. Well, this is the gay marriage thing, and you said go by the law, whatever the federal law is. Do you go, as a judge, do you have to go to some training every year, some conferences to talk about the new laws?
Yes,
or does somebody that works for you
do.
read them and come in and tell you?
When I first was appointed judge, I had to go to a training for judges, and they explained the process, and you have, actually they teach you to be a little arrogant, and I was joking.
No, you weren't. You are arrogant. I remember that. Your wife said you were arrogant.
You got arrogant 1 and arrogant 2.
Okay, okay.
No, it really is beneficial, and I made friends when I was going through that judge's process that I still have.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, that's part of it, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Do small claims do any good to get it out in front of you?
It reduces the caseload, and anytime you can reduce the caseload, that's good.
What about plea bargain? What do you think?
Plea bargain is very, very necessary.
Why?
Because you can't have a jury trial for every case that comes through. A jury trial, just getting the jury takes a day or so,
yeah.
And you would have a week tied up in one case.
Yeah.
You can't function that way.
Well, does it bother you sometimes when they're really guilty of this and then they plead this?
I'll tell you what bothered me one time was one that I heard about, and I don't know specifically, but this kid was very affluent, came from a very rich family, and he had a blood alcohol that was 3 times the legal limit, and he drove that truck into a crowd, killed 4 people, I think, and paralyzed 1, and his sentence was 10 years, all of which was suspended on condition that his family put him in a rehab place of their choosing. Now that's the type of thing that...
That wasn't in your court.
No, it certainly wasn't.
Did that judge get in a little trouble on that one?
The judge, she resigned after that.
Because she caught so much heat.
I don't know why she
There's
resigned.
once in a while, there's a couple of channels on TV when a judge makes a
horrendous,
a terrible move, or it looks on paper as if it were.
Well, that's true like this one. All I know is what I read in the paper.
Yeah. Well,
and you know how that goes.
Yes, sir. You better read it carefully. All right, 2 more questions and we'll close out the show. 1, if you could start over again, what would you change in your career?
You know, looking back, I don't think I would change a thing.
Well, most people say that are successful. Did you ever keep up with how many cases you actually were before?
How many cases?
Yeah, how many cases have you done?
No, never kept track of that.
Man, that's a bunch, wasn't it?
It was a bunch. And they're all unique. They're all so personal to the individuals involved. And you're taking the responsibility to decide it. And it's very difficult. I did a lot of domestic relation type things.
Woo!
And that's a tough nut, too.
Well, you say you like baseball. What do you think of our Chipola baseball program here?
I think it's tremendous, and I hope it gets warm enough that I can sit out there and watch a game.
How many more weeks will you be here this time?
I haven't been told yet.
Oh, well, we'll ask your wife over there. What would you be? End of March. She's answered.
Yeah.
Well, I'll give you a month. You'll get to see several games then with Chipola.
I certainly hope so.
Good. Well,
because they have such a great program.
If I give you a Chipola hat, will you quit wearing that stupid Oklahoma crap you came in here wearing?
That's not Oklahoma. That's Indiana. What are you doing there? What did you? I'll tell you, the hat I want is 2-egg.
2-egg? Well,
Get
they
me
don't
a
make
2-egg
hats.
hat.
In fact, that is the most stolen sign on that little community. The sheriff's got a box of them.
Is that right?
So he sends somebody out there and puts it back up when they call and say somebody's stolen the sign. I'll get you a Chipola hat and you can wear it to the game.
I
Then
will.
You go back to Indiana. And
I appreciate it.
Well, we have 21 kids playing pro ball, most of them in the minor league. We have 9 that are playing on teams. And
Now, they had something a few weeks ago where
Alumni weekend, yes, sir.
yes, and that certainly looked interesting.
Yep. Well, Batista, who led the leagues
That's
2
the
years
guy.
in a row, came here from Dominican Republic and was a good student. And you know what? When they were here, you know where they do? They go visit teachers
Isn't
that
that
taught
something?
them. Isn't that amazing? Not
It
just
is.
the coach. They go to the teachers and hug their neck in front of the class.
That is neat.
Shows you what kind of kids we teach and kind of.
That makes you proud, doesn't it?
Well, someone asked him, could he speak English when he came here? I said, well, I know this. The other day he said, 45 million? 45 million?
He learned that quick, didn't he?
Russell Martin just got a 10-year contract for $82 million.
It's hard to believe.
Don't seem right, but hey, kid, his daddy rented an apartment in New York and played saxophone in the train station underneath the ground so that kid could go to a school that had good
Isn't
baseball.
that something? Yeah.
I mean, and then
You know what Pete Rose said one time? He said the guy that picks up garbage is of more value to the community than me.
You're right. I'm not sure that's true, but baseball is a great game, and they've tried to speed it up. Now they say you got to keep 1 foot in the batter's box in between pitches if there's no action.
Yeah, I don't like messing with baseball. I'm a
they just
traditionalist.
strengthen too long. People,
And I like long games. I like a leisurely afternoon at the ballpark. And
well,
there's
Judge, I
nothing wrong with
appreciate
it.
you being in here, and I appreciate you bragging on Chipola School, and we do have a great school. And
You do.
And it's not just athletics. Our academics is tremendous. And kids, we've got the facts to show that kids that come here for 2 years, when they go to Indiana or Alabama or Florida State, they do better than the students who went straight to those major universities. So, and that's facts. And that's probably
good to
true a
hear.
lot of places, but we're real proud of that. But I appreciate you being here, sir.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you.
If I can ever help you out again, let me know.
I'll do it. Well, every time you come, I want you to come and talk about Chipola.
I'll come and talk about Indiana. How's that?
All right, stay seated right there just a second. Folks, you have seen it here. If you got an idea for a show, don't call and tell me that brilliant idea. Call and tell me who's going to come in and talk about that brilliant idea. I got books with ideas in it. It's not ideas I need, it's you. So call me and let's set up something. But I do appreciate Judge Robinson, Judge Robinson, for being here. And I appreciate the Bashford family who've produced some good folks, so they'll bring these Yankees down here so we can interview them. But I appreciate him. But most of all, I appreciate your watching and supporting Chipola College Television.